All right, soccer freaks. This is ATL On Fire, the podcast. We're going to be talking all things Atlanta United Football Club. So sit back, buckle up, and enjoy. Hey, everybody. Welcome back. It is finally another episode of ATL On Fire.
Where have you been?
Where have you been? Where have we been? I was on vacation, and we've been slacking pretty much is the main excuse.
So, the dear podcast listeners, we're out there waiting for you, and you're just sitting on a beach.
Yep. And
You're gonna apologize for that? Just kidding.
A little bit, but you know, the first day I got to the beach, I got to tune in to a nice win that we had. So we're going to talk about it all here, Dave.
Okay. How many games we're going to talk about?
We're going to talk about 8 soccer games.
Can't be done.
Maybe not. We're going to kick it off with the U.S. men's national team and the 3-game leg in the second period of World Cup qualifying, which certainly had plenty of drama to talk about. And we've got actually 5 Atlanta United games to recap. Quite a bit. I think we've got 3 wins and 2 losses in the last 5, if I'm correct.
Yes.
And, you know, we've got the home stretch here that we want to talk about as well, as we hopefully can.
It's getting down to crunch time. Playoff line, people.
Playoff line. Hopefully we've got a healthy Joseph Martinez. We can speculate on his injury a little bit, but also 100 goals from him. Lots of good stuff to talk about.
Wow.
So, Dave, let's jump right into the U.S. men's qualification.
But first, don't you want to talk about the wine?
I always get ahead of myself. And, yeah, you've treated us to an awesome wine this evening. It's Friday night. People are going to be downloading this podcast, and they're going to be thinking about this wine tomorrow.
Yeah, it's a Barolo from Cavalli, Italian. Big, old, dry red. What do you think?
Damn, that's got a lot going on.
Yes.
That is bold and really, really good. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, that's a nice way to finally have a little bit of wine in my stream after a long week.
Right, here's to the weekend.
So now I can jump back to the U.S. men's national team. And our first game was against Jamaica.
Correct.
Which actually was positive because our good friend Pepi, who kind of saved the day in the last first period leg. He was kind of a star and came right out of the gates and had a brace in the second half of the game against Jamaica. So what do you recall from that win?
Well, it starts out with a bang, right? I mean, Areola tugged back in the first 90 seconds.
That's right.
I thought I'm gonna get a lot of feedback on Twitter about this, but I thought the call was correct. Yes, he was the last man back, but Areola made a meal out of it with a pretty slight pull. What did you think?
100% agree with you.
Wow. Okay, I thought you were gonna go the other way.
No, yeah, I do. You know, I mean, he clearly got tugged on the shoulder, went down. I also felt like it wasn't a clear and obvious goal scoring by himself type of thing. I felt like the guy who was in the center, who was relatively parallel, could have come over and at least made it difficult on him by the time he was shooting. So to me, that's not uncontested at that point in terms of the other guy being able to put some pressure on him.
Wow. Okay, consensus. What about the second last man back decision where the Jamaican defender comes across, clearly gets the man, but also gets some of the ball? I kind of thought, I'm going to get crucified for this too, that it might have been the right call too, because, he got a little bit of the man. He was sort of the last man back, but he got a lot of ball too first. It was much closer to me.
100% agree.
What?
Yeah, it's
okay, Twitter, we're ready for it.
I think, you know, I thought, you know, a lot of the pundits who I listened to were saying, you know, that's not strong refereeing. You got to call it like you would in the 60th minute, the same way you would in the first. I actually think not only did he not ruin the game by, you know, pulling a red out, that certainly there's enough people that could, speculate one way or the other. That's, to me, a good reason not to throw a red card in either of those situations. Let the players figure it out on the field. And I know that first one was tough because, you really feel like you got rooked in terms of being able to come out and get a goal in the first minute.
Yep.
But at the same time, like I said, I don't think that that was the right call to pull out the red.
Okay. Well, so the thing that strikes me as the moment of the match, if you ever want to see a phenomenal pass, I don't actually think it's on the highlights because I think they cut it off before this, but if you look at the ball by Tyler Adams out of the midfield to start the second goal, he gets the ball somewhere around the middle of the field, and he splits two lines with a ball out wide to just free up the entire game. There were multiple people in there. He saw a gap. I mean, it was absolutely genius. And so, I mean, the thing that strikes me, and we can talk a little bit about his partner, McKinney, who I think was also, Weston McKinney was also phenomenal. But the partnership between Tyler Adams and Weston McKinney is the best we have ever had, period, in the United States. It is the first time that we have a chance to have creative players like Gio Reyna and Pulisic and all of these other guys who we have to have a chance to do the creative stuff and know that we're not going to get just purely counterattacked on the way back. And to me, between the two of them, makes it the most talented U.S. roster ever. How's that? Right out of the bat.
It's hard to disagree that it's the most talented roster we've ever had. I think that's why at this point in the World Cup qualification, even though we're in a good place right now, I think people are still a little disappointed at the number of wins that we don't have, or the losses that we conceded both to Panama, which we'll talk about here in a second, and then in the previous leg, who did
Honduras?
No, we beat Honduras.
We came back on
it was
that
El
game.
Salvador.
Oh, El Salvador, yeah, it was horrible.
We didn't get the win. So I feel like with the amount of talent that we have, like those are games that I am just disappointed that, and those aren't good teams. And, I realize that there is a level of experience, particularly when you're on the road in El Salvador or Panama, that make it an X factor. And I've never been in that situation. Mm-hmm. It must be real. It's the only thing I can say. I mean, players,
it's real, all right.
It's real, but but when you're that much better, I feel like you've got to find a way. And I guess that's where it's exciting 4 years from now that these guys have had that experience. And hopefully 4 years from now, when we go through qualifying, that's the level of just pounding that I want to see when we go down to, these countries and have such talented players.
Let me list something for you. Okay. Tyler Adams, Leipzig, Champions League team in Germany. Weston McKinney, Juventus, Champions League team in Italy. Sergio Dest, Champions League team, Barcelona in Spain. Zach Steffen, Man City, Champions League team in England. Brendan Aronson, Salzburg, Champions League team in Austria. Pulisic, Chelsea, Champions League team in England. Gio Reyna, Champions League team in Dortmund. Even you have Musa at Valencia, not a Champions League team, but a La Liga. De La Fuente at Marseille. Sargent at Norwich. Yedlin at Galatasaray. Hoppe at Mallorca, right? John Brooks at Wolfsburg, and even Anthony Robinson at Champions side Fulham. I mean, and you know who the oldest player is in that group?
Oh, boy, who is it?
I believe, well, I mean, I'm not really included. I actually included Yedlin and Brooks, but amongst the most of them, the oldest player is Weston McKinney at 23.
Yeah. And that's that. I mean,
it's crazy.
And that's what Greg Berhalter is.
Adams is 22. Dest is like 21. Aronson is 20. Pulisic is 21. Reina is 19. Musa is 19. De La Fuente is 18. I mean,
yeah, it is a young squad. And I heard a rumor the other day that Wolfsburg might be interested in Pepi.
Yeah.
There's potentially a signing there. So
yeah,
we shall see.
Yeah, are you kidding me? The other thing I will say from the last comment on the Jamaica game is Miles Robinson and Walker Zimmerman, the all MLS pairing,
right?
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that all of the super young talent, the Gio Reynas, Pulisic, etc., are in Europe, and the really sophisticated defending, slightly bit older, still in MLS.
Yeah.
Right.
I just am curious how some of these players are going to hold up when it's against really good teams. I mean, we look great, even dominating Costa Rica once we went down.
Sure.
But in these games where we do look good, some of these teams just are not that good that we're playing.
Well, let's just talk about then game 2, and we look terrible. USA versus Panama.
Right. Well, we also
game 1 down. By the way, that's one game. How many minutes are we in to the podcast? How many minutes are we into the podcast?
That's a good question. I got to put my reader.
Let's see how we can make it.
We're like 10 minutes in.
7 games to go. Let's go.
So let's go. I mean, Jamaica wanted to make you pull your hair out that game because. You wonder why there's so many changes.
Oh, Panama, you mean?
Panama. Sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Panama. You wonder why Berhalter made so many changes because, you want some cohesion from one game to the next. And I realized we had Pulisic and Reina out. You want to rest some legs. And winning your home games in World Cup qualifying is everything. So making sure you're coming back with the right squad for Costa Rica, I get that. But 7 changes seemed very, very extreme.
Yeah.
And even our good friend George Bello, which maybe we didn't have too many options. I'm just surprised to see that much pressure being put on a player that doesn't have that much, national team experience in a game like Panama that really did matter, in my opinion, because it put so much more pressure on us when we came back to Costa Rica at home after we had lost it. And it also messes with the player's confidence like that. George Bello must know he did not have a good game. I mean, and along with most every other player on the squad. But
in fairness, his hands from the Bello situation was a little bit forced because Anthony Robinson, because he was at Fulham, England has a block on Panama as a country. So he couldn't travel. Zach Steffen couldn't travel either. The 2 English players. Pulisic wouldn't have been able to travel.
Is that because they're being nice to the club teams by not?
Yeah, because then they would have to undergo 2 weeks of quarantine and they would miss several matches, which makes the clubs very angry, and then they don't want to release them the next time, and you get this whole argument. Right. But, here's my thing, right? Honduras, not in the previous round of 3, right? Tyler Adams starts at right back, right? I don't say this pretty often, but WTF, right? Like, the guy is absolutely brilliant, the heart and soul of our midfield. He starts him at right back. That's a catastrophe. At halftime, he realizes the mistake. He moves him back into center midfield. And for those of you who don't recall, we just ran over him in the second half after the first half was one of the worst ever, right? And we came back to win, right? So Tyler Adams plays brilliantly in Jamaica, against Jamaica at home, right? We go to Panama, right? We have some limitations about whatever. What happens to Tyler Adams?
He gets moved out of a position he's good at and put into a different one?
Yeah, a position that he can't help us in called the bench.
Yeah.
He wasn't in the starting lineup. He didn't play, right? How does Tyler Adams not start that game? Now, Berhalter said something later about, he had a little bit of injuries. He's coming back from injuries. I don't care. He is the heart and soul of our team. He's fit. He's healthy.
If he's on the bench,
he's 22 years
that
old.
means he can play. So you put him in.
And he could play.
Yeah.
He didn't get any injury. He was brilliant in Jamaica. You know you're going on the road in CONCACAF, and the heart and soul of your team is on the bench? Are you kidding me, Berhalter?
So you're saying if the rotations at minimum should have been 6, and
yes,
there you go.
I mean, even if you're going to tinker a fair amount and try to keep people fresh, you tinker around the heart and soul team. You would also argue Miles Robinson, heart and soul of the defense, has been the best defender for the U.S.
Completely.
Where was he?
He was on the bench. And you know, right, I agree. Like, especially, you know, Atlanta United's next game is tomorrow, and that between all these games, these guys are young. They can handle that.
Well, but even if they're not and you have to rest them, you're like, look, you're going on the road in CONCACAF. You got to try to win all the games. You might say, look, we come home, we could maybe make a change like that. But mostly what you do is you stay with your center back and your center midfield, and you tinker around that. And even like the most notorious tinkers, you know, like the Benitezes of the world, they don't tinker with their center back and their defensive center midfield.
Right. And you know who would have headed it the right direction when that corner kick came in? Is Miles Robinson, where Zardes is like, no, I'll go ahead and just flick that on into the back post because that's what I'm used to doing on the other side of the field.
I think he was trying to score, didn't it look like
it sure as hell did, but can we move on from the Panama game? It's going to just frustrate.
Yeah, with 2 subs at half, 3 more subs in the 64th minute. Okay, and that's the last thing I want to talk about in this game. Okay, no matter how bad it goes, and it was going badly, right? You cannot, in any professional sense, you cannot make your 5th sub in the 64th minute.
Yeah.
Right? Could you imagine if somebody, which almost happened, gets a major injury and you have to play the last 30 minutes, 25 minutes with a man down? He'd have gotten crucified. Have you ever seen a coach use their last sub in the 64th minute, Mikey Dobbs?
Well, even when there was 3 back in the day, which was before the pandemic, there was only 3 subs. Mm-hmm. That would have been a mistake. But when you have 5 subs to do that, that's even more silly.
Even worse, because you can change a lot with 4 subs, and then you have to keep the 5th sub for the last, right? I mean, what? Gonna go with it again. WTF, Mikey Dobbs, Berhalter.
But, Dave, we switched places. I came over to your house the other night to watch the 3rd of the second series of qualifiers against Costa Rica, Pura Vida, but they were here in the United States at the Columbus Crew Stadium, right?
Yes, it was at Columbus, correct. The brand new stadium, which looks nice.
And, you turn on the TV, and it's beautiful outside, nice kind of crisp evening. 30 seconds in, I kind of start paying attention. Ball bounces around. It gets crossed. All of a sudden, side net. What just happened? A minute and 30 seconds in, we're down 1-0.
Yep.
That is not how you want to
start. I'm going to go with yes on that, Mikey Dobbs.
What goes wrong in the preparation? I mean, it was a little fluky all around. But there has to be a readiness there for...
Well, the U.S. has come out flat, to be honest, in at least 5 of the 6 games. And, that's no way to live. I speak from experience. My Man United team keeps doing the same thing under Ole Gunnar. Start out slow, has all the firepower in the world to come back, but it's not a way to live.
Right. So it was... tense moments right out of the gates, even though
it was a good goal though.
Yeah. I mean, it was, it was a little unlucky, certainly the way that I went back and looked at the replay, the way it kind of pinged around and the guy on the left side had it kind of come to him.
Yeah. And
he put a nice kind of lobbing cross that
beautiful cross.
The goalkeeper really didn't have a right to go after.
Correct.
And, I would say the person that hit it kind of got a little lucky because There was another Costa Rican player in front of Zach Steffen that kind of shielded and rightfully confused him.
Yep.
Because had he made a touch in the ball, he could have kicked it near post.
Right.
But he just kind of olayed it. and it ended up going to the far post. It's, you could say Zach Steffen could have done better, but after watching it, I can understand why he was a little bit flat-footed because of where the other Costa Rican player was when it came across.
I'm going to disagree with you, Mikey Dobbs.
Okay.
I think that the goalkeeping was shambolic. Zach Steffen
on that one play, though.
That one play.
Okay.
Because Zach Steffen, as an international goalkeeper, that ball is not hit hard at all. He totally mishit it. He sort of shanked it back. It was bounced down off the ground, and it was going pretty slowly.
But the first person it came to was another Costa Rican player.
Yes, the Costa Rican player was there, and Zach Steffen stayed as if the guy was going to knock it. But as a goalkeeper, you've got to stop the ball going straight in, right? You have to stay at home long enough to be able to stop the ball that's going straight in. That's like goalkeeping one-on-one, right? And then if somebody gets it, onto it right in front of you, that's not your fault, right? Like somebody's got to defend that. You can't defend that. Like there's no way to, right? So to me, that looked like Zach Steffen looked like a guy who's been sitting on the bench for Man City for a long time, and I think Zach Steffen in full flight, like playing every day, realizes that guy's not going to touch it, and he just steps over and catches it, really.
Yeah, fair point. And, plenty of other moments in that game where you could see Zach Steffen is not getting minutes just in the way that he's reading the game.
Yeah, it's sad because Zach Steffen looks to me like maybe one of the best U.S. goalkeepers ever.
Yeah.
He's phenomenally talented, and what an absolutely atrocious decision to go to Man City, right? I mean, you're playing behind Ederson, who's arguably the best goalkeeper in the world.
And Matt Turner looks phenomenal, in my opinion.
Yes. As a goalkeeper, yes. Is one weakness, and I'm rarely in agreement necessarily with the national media, but I happen to agree with them that his play out of the back with the ball at his feet lacks, and he gets us into trouble sometimes. So that's the knock on him, that he can't play with the ball at his feet.
And, I think he's pretty
But goalkeeping has been terrific.
Yeah, goalkeeping's terrific. And, guys who aren't good at that per se, as long as they learn how to adopt over time, not to make the crucial mistake, and get it. Even like Brad Guzan, I don't know. Would you say Brad Guzan is good with his feet?
Well, Brad Guzan has two good feet. He can play a ball with his left and right foot, which is pretty unique for a goalkeeper. And although, I know I'll preempt your argument, I said he tends to launch the ball wide and sometimes out of bounds. First of all, I would argue that he does that on purpose, which is if you're going to make a mistake, put it out of bounds. You don't get countered right in. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
But the other thing about him is he will play a ball 40, 50 yards up with either his left or right foot. And that's a huge advantage.
Yeah. Well,
and Zach Steffen is the same way, can play ball with either foot. Turner is not.
Yeah. So back to the Costa Rica game.
Yep.
We get scored on a minute 30, and then the U.S. is on the front foot for...
understatement.
Understatement for certainly, like, just talk about the first half, the entire first half. Like, Costa Rica wasn't even in the game. You just felt it coming. Did we score in the first half? I can't remember.
Yes, Serginho Dest, left foot rocket.
Couldn't remember if that was just
Are
after
you
halftime.
freaking kidding me?
Yeah.
He just put his foot right through it.
Right.
I mean, his quickness and his ability in space, he beats the defender at least 9 times out of 10.
Because that was close to like the 45th minute, right?
Yeah, it was close to half. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it was great build up. It came from the other side of the field, like someone kind of crossed it, and it went a little too long. And then I can't remember who played it right into Serginho Dest.
And it might have been Musa, but yeah.
Musa, and then Weston McKennie pulls a guy kind of across and in front of him, which opens up a little slot. He takes a look up and says, "There's the upper 90," and hit the upper 90.
He just put his foot right through it. And what's remarkable about that, folks, that's Serginho Dest, the right back, who everybody says is maybe a little too much right-footed. That's his left foot, people. He's not. He plays sometimes on the left back for Barcelona. I mean, talk about a guy who's truly two-footed, right?
Right.
He can cross with both feet. He can shoot with both feet. That's his weak foot, people.
And I was reading an article that I forget what minute he came off, but he's evidently kind of a unique dude. That when he came off, he was like high-fiving the fans in the stand.
He went off on the far side, which you haven't seen since Little League.
Yeah. Right? And he kind of did his, because he had the goal and an assist, right?
Uh-huh.
He did a goal and assist, and I kind of like that.
Yeah, he got subbed off. He went off the far side, and then he walked around the entire stadium high-fiving people in the front row. Now, the knock on him is defending. Which has been a little bit questionable at times, but the other knock on him is that maybe he's a little injury prone. So we'll see. That worries me. Yeah, but as long as he's playing, he's good.
Yeah, his ankle did, in the slow motion, it looked like his ankle did get hit pretty good there. So I get it. And then we come out in the second half, don't quite look as good. Costa Rica still looking like their average age is 35. So
they look like us out at Silverbacks.
They sure as hell did. Like,
I mean, no offense to us, but
Miles Robinson passes it to their forward, who then is so slow he can't do anything with it. And Miles is like, "All right, I'll just run back and stop you."
That was Brian Ruiz, wasn't it?
Yeah,
who's been around. Yeah. He was an MLS star 10 years ago.
Yeah. And so had it gone to any other player on the Costa Rican team, maybe, or on any other team,
he just looked like, please, somebody catch me from behind and take me out of my pain as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So
he can still finish. I understand why they still have him in the game, but he can. 35 yards from goal, he's never going to get there.
And we honestly got so there's one lucky example, right, where they could have scored easily. Then we also fouled a guy in the box that should have been a penalty kick, and that didn't get called.
Mm-hmm. The penalty kick that we should have conceded, according to my notes.
Yeah.
Are we agreeing again on the penalty kick?
We're agreeing again. Like the defender jumps and gets his legs in between the ball and the striker. And as the striker, who is right about to kick the ball, almost simultaneously, you could say that the striker kicked the back of the ankle of the guy lunging, or you could say that the guy lunging hit his foot, right, which is a clear penalty.
Now, was it Richards? The new kid, the really young kid who started his first ever international game? Or was it Robinson coming in from the side? I can't remember.
It must have been Richards.
I think it was Richards.
It wasn't. I know it wasn't Robinson.
It was one of those two, yeah.
So you could argue this one, that the player who's defending has the right to put his body between the ball and the striker. And if the striker happens to kick the defender's ankle, then that's the striker's fault. So that's where this controversy is, on a split second of, if you really wanted to get nasty with VAR, like, you would have to slow it down to, 60 frames per second, zoom in and say, okay, was the defender's foot clearly in front of the offensive's foot, off of the attacker's foot, and the attacker's foot happened to hit the back?
Yeah,
because that's legal, right? You're allowed to put your body within playing distance.
He sort of blocked him first, and then the second time of offering cleared it out. Yeah.
So the guy Shock on ESPN FC is where I got my theory on this, and he actually got me thinking about that. It's particularly as somebody who likes to score goals, I'd be pissed if I ended up hitting the back of an ankle of a player who put his foot. But if you got his ankle there first and it's in playing distance to the ball, then maybe it's not a penalty kick.
Yeah, I thought it was a penalty kick.
I thought so too, but I'm asking, by definition, what is the rule there? Do you see where I'm going with this? Yeah. Like, I think it should have been a penalty kick as well.
I think it's subject to interpretation, but right. Yeah. So now, one of the things you should comment on, right? So CONCACAF does not have VAR, and the reason for that is because a lot of the stadiums, a la Jamaica, probably Honduras, El Salvador, maybe, don't have the capabilities of having it. So the CONCACAF decided that if you can't have it in those places because of the technical limitations, that it's not fair to have it anywhere at all. How do you feel about that?
I think it's the biggest crock of shit that I've ever heard. We're talking about companies that have to survive during the pandemic, that have to learn Zoom and how to do virtual meetings and figure out technology that can allow people to talk face to face. You mean to tell me in a budget where World Cup qualification means billions of dollars that you can't figure out how to put in a lightweight system to where people can even do this remotely? Are you kidding me? No way I buy it. If you get a team from Georgia Tech to give me a budgeted solution as a weekend project, you got VAR in every Central American country, period, the end.
That's not where I thought you were going.
Was that my rant? I think it was my rant.
Yeah, I like it. I actually agree with that. I thought you were going to say that they should still have it. So what? So I completely agree with you, Mikey Dobbs. That
this is getting kind of weird.
I know that they should have had VAR, but here's where I disagree with you, or maybe I don't disagree. So the question is, all right, so let's put aside for a second the shambolicness of not being able to put in VAR at those stadiums. If they can't, do you think they should allow it in like the U.S. and Mexico? Should CONCACAF allow those games to have VAR when the other ones don't?
It's a great question. And that's the thing. Like the way
it's a yes or no question, Mike Adams.
Okay. If it's yes or no, I'm going to go with yes.
Okay.
The reason I say that is we're now moving to that being the standard for professional soccer. So if it's available and that's how referees are trained to officiate the game, then you shouldn't mess it up for how they officiate. The officials are currently being trained to gauge the game fairly, because that's all their job is to officiate it as fairly as possible. If you go back to an archaic way, which is now in the rear view mirror, I don't necessarily think that's even fair for the referees.
Okay. I'm going to disagree with you.
All right, good.
So I think out of fairness, CONCACAF got it right that if you can't have it in all the stadiums, it's really weird to have a different set of rules. And, because what can happen and what would happen is you have a call that's overturned by VAR correctly, maybe in one game that should have been overturned, to help El Salvador, that ends up being the difference between them qualifying or not. And they feel really hard done by because, it was allowed here and not there. So I think fairness, they got that call right, even though I actually, to be honest with you, hadn't really thought that, why do they even, how is it that they can't have VAR?
Yeah, I know. That's the whole crux of it to me.
So in the end, I agree with you.
All right, well, round and round we go. Anything to talk about that? What are your expectations for this next qualification series, which is kind of the third leg of a 4-period series of the qualifiers, right?
Yeah, we only have 2 games in the next one. We start out with Mexico in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So, Alan Colehep, if you're going to be there, let us know. You can call into the podcast. I guess one question that we have, that we haven't talked about is Pepi or no Pepi, right? So do you think he's the real deal or not? So he scored 3 goals so far. He scored 2 in the win against Jamaica.
If I'm in Vegas, I'm betting on Pepi. He seems to have, he's got a nose for goal. He had a very poor game in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
You and I spoke about it. He did not put himself in the right positions, but I think that happens sometimes to strikers, particularly after, he had a nice little hot streak there. I see things from him, though, that even in that game where he didn't get alignment with crosses that were coming in, that, even like someone like Josh Sargent's been disappointing me on. Like, I'd rather see Pepi in there than anyone else at this point. That's my answer. You?
I'm not convinced yet. I thought he was really good when he scored the couple goals. The finishing I thought might have been really much better. But it concerned me in the Costa Rica game where we were so on the front foot. We're getting really, really good services into the box, and he didn't come close to any of those balls.
That's where I just say it's any given Sunday.
Okay, and he's young.
But
the question is, so there's two answers to this question. One is Pepi great long term, and then two, is he great in this qualifying cycle at this age?
I think he's great long term. Mm-hmm. I honestly do. I mean, everything is speculation at this point. Sure. He's so young, but I just have a gut feeling with what I'm seeing. There's just something a little bit different about his play that I can't put my finger on that I like.
Okay.
And the other guy I like that is Hoppy.
Yep.
I believe in Hoppy too, kind of in a similar young, youthful way where Hoppy puts people on their heels.
Mm-hmm. He dribbles at folks.
He dribbles at folks. He makes people make a decision, and we need more of that in our squad.
I agree.
So let's go to Atlanta United, Dave, unless you got anything else.
So where are we at now? We're 3 games down. We got through the U.S. How many minutes into the podcast? Let's go, people.
35 minutes.
35. Wow, that's a new record.
We're moving on. So
gonna talk about it all.
Atlanta United, we apologize, ATL on Fire fans. We are 5 games behind. After on the last podcast, I bragged about how on top of it we are. But
cursed us.
Then
he headed out to the beach, folks.
Yeah. The first game, though, was shortly after our last podcast. We played Cincinnati. And that was at home, correct? And
correct.
We had a 4-0 win against Cincinnati.
Yep.
I'm trying to bring my brain back, but you've got notes. Go to it, Dave.
Okay. There's some concern, and I think the wrap up, the thing that we need to talk about after maybe we get through these games is what is our long-term feeling on Pineda. So stick a pin in that one. So in the center of the midfield, Rosetto in the 10th minute was absolutely on an island. He's trying to cover a mess of Cincinnati players. The solution that they have is from the back 5 from Atlanta United is one of the center backs is supposed to come out and help him defend in the midfield. And to be honest, no way that works. It just doesn't work, right? A, it's too late. B, it's too confusing. There's too many choices. And what ends up happening a lot of times is it's the wrong guy. It's late. It doesn't work. And then you're really up the, creek without a paddle.
Right.
Obviously, attacking wise, 5th minute, I think it was, Araujo just absolutely turns and runs by the Cincinnati players like they're cones. What a goal.
There were literally, I think, 4 players around him just across the halfway mark.
Yep.
And all of them kind of converged. None of them committed. And he did the strangest little turn and then just pushed the ball, I don't know, a good 10, 15 yards in front of him and just showed a different level of speed that had the Cincinnati players, frankly, just ball watching. I mean, which left those 4 players who should have been involved in the defense just watching, and he was able to get around the corner and rip it.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
So the thing that I'll keep coming back to as one of my thoughts. So Lennon and Mulroney were so far up the field, being offside multiple times as the outside backs.
This is in the Cincy game?
In the Cincy game, right? And what are you supposed to do, that far up the field that early, being offside, right? They're not defending in this system. In the back 5, they're really not defending very much. They're not getting back and defending, which is okay because we got 3 terrific center backs and you have Sosa sitting in a lot. But if you're not defending, you got to be adding something offensively. And what are we getting out of Lennon and Mulroney offensively? I mean, the only thing I can think of is because they're out there and far up the field, maybe you can argue they're keeping defenders honest and opening up the game for the Fab Four, Araujo, Bello, Martinez, and Moreno.
So you're saying they're a decoy to spread the field wide.
I'm not saying they are, but that's what they're only good for.
So that we can play more direct to Barco, Moreno, and Araujo. Maybe.
At halftime,
if that's happening, I'm okay with that, by the way. If we're able to sneak really good balls direct up in the center of the field, I mean, that's great because those guys they do have the quality to turn it and go.
So at halftime, Jillian Sakovic interviewed Rob Valentino. Remember him? Oh, yeah. And he says that we're way too open in midfield, particularly defensively. Really?
Yeah, really? You think?
Really? You think? Yes. I'm going to go with yes on that. But the free kick, they had a free kick where Joseph Martinez runs sort of offside really, really early and gets the defense all confused, which was clearly planned. There is no way that he is that dumb. It was absolutely brilliant, and they worked it well. It went to Franco, back over to Joseph Martinez for the goal off the free kick. Awesome.
Yeah, so we again, we seem to be well rehearsed on set plays.
Yes. One thing you can argue about the Pineda era, and he says that he designates it to assistant coaches, so, for what that's worth. But offensively, on set pieces, we've looked excellent.
All right, so do you want to go to the third goal?
The third goal was the Barco where he whipped in the free kick and they thought it was a cross and it just kind of went straight in, like off the defender. Was it an own goal?
I think that was a different game.
Oh. Anyway, the final score really flattered Atlanta a little bit, 4-0.
Yeah. Cincinnati was awful.
Yeah, and they brought on Dan pretty late, and he looked like he was short of confidence. In the 92nd minute, he gets the ball, and he had a chance to shoot, and he cut it back instead. But Alan Franco, 3 assists in the game. And
is that right? That's an interesting stat for that one.
Yeah. And Julian Sakovic interviewing Joseph Martinez after the game, which I thought was amazing. She was asking the questions in very broken Spanish, and he was answering in English.
All right, Dave. We are 40 minutes in, and we've made it through what?
Let's go.
4 games.
All right. What's next? DC United?
DC United 3-2, and I was on vacation for this one. I had just arrived in Folly Beach, South Carolina.
Yep.
Turned on the TV or a Chromecast the game. Thank goodness everything was working. I was able to watch the game. I think, or no, this was home. I was able to watch the game without a VPN or anything because I was in Charleston. It works smoothly. No tricks
outside. You don't have to trick the system.
That was like the one stress-free moment for me, and then. The first stress
was it on Bally Sports?
No, I think it was on I think it was available on ESPN or something.
Oh, ESPN Plus because ESPN it's outside Plus. Okay, gotcha. Exactly. So it was on Bally Sports probably, but because you were outside the zone,
that's right.
ESPN
I
Plus.
could use ESPN Plus normally, and
well done, Mikey Dobbs.
So this is a game that we dominated for the most part, but showed some lack of kind of seeing it out towards the end. Even though, if I recall, in that game, DC's 2 goals were pretty damn phenomenal.
There were 5 phenomenal goals in this game.
Yeah.
It was golazo after golazo. Right? We didn't give up that much, but man, when we gave it up,
I remember going back to the replay of the DC goals. I'm like, well, what are you gonna do about that? I mean, jeez, those are some good goals. I mean, from Barco's, it was Barco's free kick, the first one, Barcolito, from way outside is probably, I don't know, I'm going to say 24, 25 yards out. He plays it, just rips it near post, upper 90.
Barcolito.
Yeah, it was.
Barcolazo.
And I'm so happy for him because he's got that capability. This is the guy that I keep backing with his capability to do that as an Argentine youth that I think is going to be on the national team of Argentina at some point. He keeps doing that type of stuff. It turns heads.
Yep. We could have scored probably 5, 6. We could have unfortunately given up 3, 4. It was very open. Why do you think it's open, Mikey Dobbs?
Because there's nobody in the center of the field, Dave.
Okay.
Nobody in the center of the
somewhere.
field.
All right.
We're going to solve that problem by 4 in the back, or are we, Pineda?
Do you want to remind people of math?
Right.
So when you play with 4 phenomenal, the Fab 4 up front, Martinez, Araujo, Barco, and Moreno, okay, and you play 5 in the back, and you play a goalkeeper, which is pretty standard. How many does that leave in the midfield?
And they call that BAM, right?
BAM. That's
BAMM.
Yeah, that was the commentator's word for it, right?
Love that.
What's his name?
BAM. So what else you got on the other goals? So I do remember the DC goals. There was just a couple.
There it is, right here.
Amazing strikes. So you got the phone up. Oh yeah. So it comes from outside. They played in. Oh, Dave, explain what you're seeing here.
Are you kidding me? It was out of the air from. He had to be 30 yards away. There's a ball flicked into the middle. I think it's deflected. I can't really tell whether he meant that or it's deflected. But anyway, he hits it on the half volley, short hops it. It never moves like more than an inch, and it's from a good 30 yards. Yeah. I mean, what a freaking goal. We were up 2-0. Game was kind of over, and then that was in the 70-something minute, late 70 minute, 80th minute, and now it's a game again because of that.
Right. And a lot of times I'd be disappointed with letting the game slip away, but with goals like that, I just kind of had to tip my hat.
Yeah, sometimes you just step back as a fan and you just don't think about tactics and admiring at all. And you just say whatever. But now here we go, Mikey Dobbs. Right, we're at 2-1, and we played up the line. Moreno, 1.
Oh, that's right. Moreno
cut back.
Moreno takes on like 8
takes
people.
On the same guy twice. Second guy, third guy,
and Bello's there.
4 guy, down to 5th guy, 6th guy, and he touches over to Bello for the goal.
Bello, the least difficult goal of all time, because pretty much Moreno dribbled it right up to the goalkeeper.
Wait, Moreno did nothing.
Yeah, Moreno did. So, if you haven't gone back and watched the highlights of that game,
watch that one.
I mean, all the goals are great. I think there's not much more to talk about in that
Anybody game, right? Who's going to critique Moreno and say he's not a player, watch that.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, where he gains the ball on the field and where he takes it to, I don't know if you remember a famous goal from Diego Maradona in the World Cup. It was pretty similar. Now, Maradona finishes it by himself with the goalkeeper draped and the 3 guys chasing him. But Moreno had 3 guys chasing him. The only difference is he just squared it across for a tap in from Bello. I mean, but you got to admire Bello as the left back being there for a tap in at the 2-yard line.
Dave, if you're going to compare an MLS goal to Maradona or the similar Messi one,
I'm not necessarily saying that.
It is a nice C+ version of it.
Okay, C+1, gotcha.
But no, I mean, Moreno, to just be able to stay focused through that period and have the stamina, unbelievable.
We apologize to the departed Diego Maradona. Rest in peace.
So we're going to move on to an ugly game, which I only watched the highlights because I think I was actually driving back from Charleston when this game was happening away against Philadelphia, where we lost 1-0.
Yeah, so now if we aren't going to talk about tactics in the DC United game, I think we have to talk about tactics against Philadelphia. Because Philadelphia and Curtin, they play this narrow trapping diamond. Everybody gets narrow in the field. They can see the outsides of the field, right? And if you're Pineda, knowing that, all they're going to do there is they're going to clog the middle of the field, right? Who's in the middle of the field? Araujo, Barco, Moreno, Martinez, right? And let me just check for consistency's sake. Martinez did not play in the game, right? Because he was hurt. That's what I.
So we were
recall.
playing the false.
So Barco Araujo, it's a false 9. Moreno, yes, correct. But still, those guys are all in the middle, and they're designed to play in the middle. And so the question is, what happens when that happens, right?
We get run over.
It didn't look very good without the ability to spread them out. And there were players draped. They were double and triple team all over Araujo, Barco, and Moreno. They had 3 players on them all the time. It should have left the wingers absolutely free to get in behind. But Lennon doesn't really have the ability to do that. Bello didn't make it happen. They both look absolutely lost. They're way up high looking to cross when there is nobody there to cross to. And they didn't really take things on. If you go back and watch that game in the 64th minute, there's a time where 3 consecutive times we play to Lennon. I think it was Araujo and somebody else playing it to him 3 consecutive times in the same sequence. All 3 times he has the guy isolated one-on-one.
Doesn't take
and
him
he
on.
never went at him.
Yeah.
And if you're playing against that diamond and those guys don't take him on out there with no help, then they can just double and triple team all day, and that's what happened.
Happy time.
Mm-hmm. So when you do that, you don't score. And when you don't score,
you don't win.
Right. And then, we're down 1-0, and I was a little bit disappointed by the substitution, right? So he left on Lennon. So actually, I take this back. We were at 0-0. He makes the sub. He leaves on Lennon, right? He could have brought on Dam, who I think would have absolutely annihilated that guy with one-on-one with nobody behind him, right? Instead, he breaks on Mulroney. Now, Bello, on the other hand, was actually going at people occasionally and opening that up. If anything, we look better on that side. So I have no idea why he makes that sub. But in the first 60 seconds on the field, Mulroney in the back in a 0-0 game gets absolutely turned because instead of challenging for the ball with his with his right foot, he challenges with his left across the thing, gets himself completely turned around, beaten like he's a turnstile at, the stadium, and they just walk right in and score. So how's that for a substitution, Mikey Dobbs?
Not good. Yeah, and I agree. Like there's times when you're not beating people on the outside, and if Lennon's not getting it done, you've got Jürgen Damm getting paid $1.5 million a year. I think he's one of our highest paid players. Mm-hmm. Put him on.
And certainly, even whatever concerns you have about him, long term, and whether he's a box to box or complete player, the one thing he can do is really run at people. He's got pace, he's got craftiness, and in against a team that has clogged up the middle, maybe you start him, or even if you don't start him, when you see Lennon not taking the guy on and you have 3 players draped all over Araujo, Bello, Moreno, they're doing nothing, you got to bring on something to open it up.
Right.
It seemed a missed opportunity, Mikey Dobbs.
All right, Dave, we are at 50 minutes or so. Miami.
Well, I was going to say, so... and we'll get to our take home from Pineda after we finish all these games. But the one thing that you said, Mikey Dobbs, which I think rings very true, is that the coach has got to be someone who, loves the organization.
Yeah.
And prior to this game, Pineda actually invited the supporters groups to come to practice. He embraced them. They had a celebration, and then he and the players served dinner to the staff. So nice call, Mikey Dobbs.
Yeah, and as much as you and I are now starting to critique Pineda for not having the confidence to maybe change things, at least the way that you and I want to see.
Is that foreshadowing?
Foreshadowing?
Go ahead.
I think he's taking care of the important stuff first, which is good. And hopefully this is just, again, a little bit of lack of confidence as a head coach to feel comfortable in trusting yourself and saying, I know I said that we're not going to change things drastically, but you know what? Changing to a 4 in the back when you need to, I think he's got to start getting his head around, things like that when they make sense, or making really difficult decisions on putting players in the right position to perform.
At a minimum, if you insist on playing 5 in the back, there's a couple of things. One, you can't play with the Fab Four or BAM, as they're being referred to.
You gotta sub them on strategically.
You got to play 3 out of the 4, and then the 4th comes off the bench. Because you cannot play with one player on an island in the midfield. It doesn't work at any level in any league. As good as Sosa is, he's not that good.
And I still feel like this season he's hell bent on 3 in the back. I don't see any signals that he's going to change. So.
And why?
I don't know, but hopefully, maybe there's at least a chance of the rotation piece of the BAM up front, where it's not the BAM, it's the BAM. How you like that? So, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I laughed so hard I spilled a little bit of my wine. Sorry, folks.
Now, let's move on to the next game, since we have so many games to cover, which was against Miami at home.
Right.
Dave, you and I were at the game together.
In all its glory.
And what are your notes there?
Well, actually, they flashed some stats at the stadium, which I think are interesting. So Atlanta United leads the league in duels, possession, and successful dribbles. And Miles Robinson leads the MLS in duel rate. So it's, I think, something that I would share with the podcast listeners. And I think that rings true for me. Yeah. I don't know about you. But again... we play 5 in the back, and in the first half, again, the solution was to have one of the center backs stepping into midfield to pick up somebody. And on several occasions, it was just pure confusion, right? And so, again, at halftime, he makes the sub. He brings off Moreno and brings on Rossetto, so we're now playing with 2 in the midfield.
Right.
And... obviously, but why does it take till halftime? And what, you're making substitutions that should be made on the training ground and in the formation for starting, right? You can't just sit there and say, well, maybe it'll work, and oh, no, it doesn't work. Oh, maybe it'll work, and no, it doesn't work, right? Like, at some point, you got to realize it doesn't work and make the change.
Yeah, and even in the post-interview of the game, I know that Pineda was saying that, Moreno is playing fine. I just wasn't putting him in the right position. Yes. He wasn't giving him the best chance to succeed, but that's for other reasons.
So in the 66th minute, so it's at halftime, he brings off Moreno and he brings on Rossetto. And then the 66th minute, he actually finally goes to 4 in the back. Shortly thereafter, we get the penalty kick, which turns out to be
100, the fastest, the fastest in the MLS to 100 goals.
Right,
Martinez. It wasn't a hop, skip, and a jump per se type of penalty kick from Joseph. It was.
Well, you do know his most famous hop, skip, and jump was when he missed.
Oh, I know.
In the semifinals
with Frank de Boer and.
2 years ago.
It would have changed Frank de Boer's whole
career.
Okay,
so he brings off a player in the 66th minute. He goes to 4 in the back. We get a penalty kick. What's your next move, Mikey Dobbs?
Well, I'm going to say fortify a bit.
That's exactly what he did. He went right back to 5 in the back. It lasted all of 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It worked, I guess.
Yeah.
Because we scored during that time period. But
what do you think what would you have done in that case, though? You get the winning goal.
Step on the gas, step on their throat, kill them. I mean, I can't believe you said that you would do that, because no Mikey Dobbs coach team would ever do that. You would have just put on another attacker and said, let's go kill him.
I agree, but in that game, we just didn't have a whole lot going on.
Yeah, but, you got the momentum, you get the penalty kick.
That wasn't the energy, and you took Moreno off, too, at that point. So
he was already off.
He was already off. So I would, if you had Moreno on, I would say step on it, but Moreno was off the field, so that's why I was like, all right, you got to fortify. Mm-hmm. So that, to me, was why I think it was the right decision to fortify. Park the bus.
I'm shocked. I mean, that's not the Mikey Dobbs I know.
It's not. But I also don't think you should have taken Moreno off.
Well, but if he didn't take Moreno off, then we'd still be Sosa on the island. We would have lost probably 3-0.
I don't know. We got a lucky penalty kick. Come on. Who knows?
Yeah, the penalty kick was not robust.
It was not at all. But it was Joseph's 100th goal.
Yeah, so that's what you got to say.
We were there. The fans were going. I mean, it felt good. It felt good in the Mercedes-Benz to celebrate
All right.
the fastest player ever in the MLS to 100 goals. Now, I don't know if you saw a couple days later, I think you got to give credit to Pineda or the front office, whoever put the video together. It was like a 7-minute video that was on YouTube. I didn't cry, Dave. You cried. I didn't cry. But you cried your eyes out when you saw that. Like, I mean, talk about the influence that Joseph Martinez has had on this town, and watching his family, and you can kind of see where he's coming from.
Well, the number of people in that video who are wishing him good, fortune. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, from players in Europe to
players back from when he was playing in Torino.
Lewandowski to it was cool to see.
Yeah,
it's cool to see.
Yeah. Check it out, dear podcast listeners. It's Atlanta United at its finest.
It is.
And maybe hashtag build the statue.
Yeah, I think, that's going to happen. Come on. That's going to be a later episode topic. But now we're on to the 5th game, which was ugly, my friend, against Montreal. We go across the border into enemy territory. Those Canadians. Oh, the Canadians. The only thing they do good is bacon, Dave. And
so there was no Araujo.
No Araujo, but we lose 1-2. So no goals, I believe, until the second half. Starts off fiery within the first 10 to 15 minutes. It's 1-1.
Yep.
And then later on we concede and lose 2-1.
We score first.
Scored first. Mulroney. Jake
great ball.
It was a great goal, right? Remind me of that one.
Was it Araujo or somebody who played him in? It was a beautiful run by Mulroney. And, he's not taking on players, but he's still running, so good for him. He made a great run using his size and speed and ran through in a terrific finish. It was basically a ball against the grain. He was running sort of diagonal through the middle from left to right. Great goal.
And this was an important game because it would have been a 6-point swing in the table.
You got to figure, we're up, 1 goal in the 48th minute. We're looking pretty good, but we concede in the 49th minute and then in the 55th minute.
And where are we in the table right now, Dave? Bring that up.
We are outside the playoff line.
Outside.
We don't like to admit that, Mikey Dobbs. But you need me to say more than that?
No, but do you have anything more to say about the Montreal game?
Well, I think we'll circle back to it when we talk about Pineda. But so there was a moment early in the game where the goalkeeper, with great pressure, Sosa's pressuring up the field. The goalkeeper plays it right to Joseph Martinez inside the penalty area. And it looked to me like it was a guy who coming off ACL surgery. If he looked like he was back in the previous games, he looked like he was slow there because he reacted slow. And then the guy actually sort of ran him over. Did you think that was a penalty?
I'm trying to recall.
The goalkeeper literally passed him the ball inside the box, and then he had it, and the guy was coming from behind and just ran him right over.
I'm going to say that's a penalty kick then, if that's your recollection. I do recall that now. Yeah, that was a penalty
You
kick.
could argue that he didn't actually hit him that hard, and Martinez went over a little bit, but it was just bumbled over. He just bumbled over him. To me, it's a penalty.
Yeah, I do remember that. That's penalty. I would agree.
But there was an example in that game in the 23rd minute that I think says it all. We have 6 defenders back against 5 on the cross. And yet, because we're playing with 3 in the back, there's no responsibility. It's 3v1 on the back post. And when the ball is served, the 3 center backs all drop to the same player. And the midfielders who were in the box don't track at all. And this leaves Bello marking 3 players. We were super lucky not to concede.
Yeah, I remember, yeah.
And I think that says it all, about the confusion with the 3 in the back. Yes, you got players back, and yes, if somebody falters, you have a guy behind them. But on the other hand, it causes problems where you have guys back and you still give up goals because nobody knows who's responsible.
So in the last year or two, it'd be interesting to look up what is the most predominant formation in top leagues. As far as this,
it's a little tricky because people call things all kinds of different things.
Right.
I mean, I think, to be honest, most people are playing some version of
but I would
either
say,
a 4-5-1 or a 4-3-3.
Yeah, but I mean, whether it's 3 in the back or 5 in the back, like, to me, that's the more logical way to call it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some debate about this, but there are very few teams truly playing 5 in the back. I mean, it's not a lot. There's a couple of people calling themselves innovators, but and there are different ways to play it. There's some people are playing 5 in the back. It's truly 5 in the back, or you have it playing like Atlanta United, which is just 3 in the back, and the 2 guys are way up the field and occasionally getting back to defend.
Yeah, and again, you're okay with that if they're attacking players in a part of the offense, but Bello sometimes, Lennon not so often. Maybe.
I mean, we've just talked about, 5 Atlanta United games?
Yeah.
Right? And how many times did we talk about Bello or Lennon creating? Now, we did talk about Bello getting in, on the back post, and I think 2 or 3 times he got there off of somebody else's action and was there in the box and could have scored, which is great. But we're not really talking about him creating things.
Look, George Bello can create and beat people, especially getting around people to cross the ball. But in terms of beating people and going to goal and scoring, not doing it. Not at the MLS level. He requires someone like Moreno to do that, to kick it off his shin at the last second. Like, honestly, and I'm not hating on Bello. I think he's going to be a great player, could be. But I'm very disappointed this season, particularly with his ability to, cut inside and just find a way to find the back of the net. Like, you got to do that.
Well, the truth is that, so the reason why Bello is not doing it is because he's not needed, right? So it's not like when Barco or Moreno or Araujo is running, they're like, I really, really need to play, Bello in overlapping. They don't need it. They're beating their guy every time, right? They don't need it.
No, but I'm saying this also in terms of, I've seen Barco multiple times slot George Bello in where he should have scored. I'm talking about finishing.
Oh, it's finishing.
Talking about finishing. I agree that those other guys are going to take more opportunities away from Bello because of the way that we've got the Fab Four in the front, that it doesn't afford him. But when he does have his chances, you got to find the back of the net, my friend.
Yeah. No, it was at the Montreal game, I think, where he's just running in by himself. It's just him and the goalkeeper, and the goalkeeper makes a decent save, but he put it, waist, chest high, where his hand to it was not good. I mean, again, his finishing is so predictable. If you watch Joseph Martinez when he gets in, you have no idea where he's going. His hips are always, the Shakira song "Hips Don't Lie."
Yeah, they don't.
But the hips
no,
in
you're right.
Martinez cases they do, right? Because he's totally selling the guy. You have no idea. His hips are one way and he's shooting the other way.
Bello squares up and rips it most of the time.
That's exactly right.
All right. I got nothing else on Montreal. We are an hour and 10 minutes in.
Okay.
I would like to talk about the final 6 games, 3 of which are at home.
Before we do that, can we I'd like to wrap up by talking about what's your take so far on Pineda.
So let's go there first.
Yeah.
But leading into that, Pineda has 6 games to get this right.
Okay.
Right? And by getting it right, I want to see a team that not only makes the playoffs, that I want to see in the last 6 games be like, holy bleep, Pineda has this team cooking.
Right.
And what I'm worried about is, I don't know, I almost feel like, it would be super disappointed if we don't make the playoffs, because we certainly have the talent, even if the talent's not even put in the right position to make the playoffs. I think we'll make the playoffs. But I will know by the end of this 6 games whether we're an MLS Cup contender, which I still have as a hope in my gut, Dave. And we've got to, first in the chain here, beat Toronto tomorrow. I guess the team is up there right now, right?
Yep.
Against a terrible Toronto team, which is at the bottom of the table, the bottom of the MLS. Go get that away win, critical. Then we're at home on a 3-game stretch. I think we at least got to win 2 out of 3. I will be doing jumping jacks if we win all 3. But if we win 2 out of 3, I still think we could be a playoff game. So with that,
how do you argue that we shouldn't win all 3? Right. So it's New York City FC, Miami, and Toronto. So Miami and Toronto are completely shambolic teams. So you got to figure if we can't beat them at home, forget it.
NYFC is the only team that I would like. Yeah, Miami and Toronto, terrible. Should beat them, right? But 4 games is 4 games. If we win 3 out of 4, I'm still feeling pretty good about things. That's all I'm saying. In that first 4.
You're okay with us losing to New York City FC
no,
at home as one of the other teams right at the playoff line?
Like a tie might be acceptable. Right. It'd be not good. I'd be pissed off. Of course I'd be pissed off. My point is if we go Toronto win on the road, tie NYFC, beat Miami, beat Toronto, like that's like minimum bar, right? That's all I'm saying. If it's anything less than that out of those 4 games, Dave, I have already like thrown in the hat. So that's what I'm saying. So I guess I'm agreeing with you that if it's anything less than what I just said, we are not winning the MLS Cup.
Toronto and Cincinnati have conceded 54 goals apiece. That's 2 goals a game.
I guess I'm just trying to be realistic. Is what I'm saying is, you're right, Dave. We should absolutely win the next 4 games, hands down. Terrible Toronto game. Need to win it on the road because we didn't show up for Montreal.
Toronto has conceded 20 more goals than we have.
Well, I don't even know who Atlanta United was at the beginning of the season, so we'll say that.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden we got healthy with all the designated
But even
players.
With all that, they've still conceded 20 more goals.
Now, New York Red Bulls is always going to be a tough game, which is the 5th in that series. Mm-hmm. And then we should hammer Cincinnati, who we know is a terrible game. We beat them 4-0. Again, those are 2 away games, particularly the Red Bulls game away is going to be the toughest of the last 6. So, yes, Dave, we have to win the next 4. New York Red Bulls, I'd be okay if we tied and then beat Cincinnati. So that means 5 wins and 1 tie. I'm good with it.
But you ignored the question, Mikey Dobbs. It was very evasive. The question was, so
Pineda's got to make us get there, right? So,
yeah, but what's your take? Do you think yes or no? Is he coaching us well enough? Is he going to get there? What do you expect?
I wish at this point.
See, we're holding his feet to the fire.
I don't know. I'm not confident now. So I I have butterflies that that's going to be the case because the last 4 games did not give me confidence. Going up to Philadelphia and losing the way we did. I mean, Philadelphia's not a bad team, but losing the way we did when I just see that there was no energy, there was no creativity, no tactics from Pineda to change things the right way. Concerned. Montreal, same thing. So
yeah, we've played 2 good teams on the road and a couple of crap teams at home. We've looked good against the crap teams at home and absolutely atrocious against the good teams on the road.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, we got dominated, and Montreal, we got sort of dominated.
Yeah.
And even you could throw in there the only other good team that we played, DC United. Yeah, we won. And I think we were better, but it was super wide open. I am not convinced, Mikey Dobbs. I mean, this idea that you come in and, oh, the 5 is working in the back, and so we don't want to change things, you know. Basically, he's saying, Rob Valentino, you were the interim coach. I'm keeping you on, and you just keep coaching the team. I don't have an opinion. I don't think that, you know, we want to change anything, because he hasn't said that he 100% agrees and that's the formation he wants to play with this team. He doesn't say that, and that really worries me, because what he has said is he doesn't want to change things. And what kind of coach doesn't want to change things for the sake of not wanting to change things? It's your team. It's not Rob Valentino's team anymore. It's your team, right? So you either say, I agree with Rob Valentino and that's what he made the best system and we're sticking with it. Or you say, I don't agree with him. That's not my system and this is what I'm going to play with. But I don't buy this whole rigmarole about, well, we're just going to keep doing it and it's working, especially because it hasn't really worked, right? We've gone on the road twice and gotten beat soundly.
Well, also, like with Tata Martino, like there's injuries, there's circumstances where you don't have the right players to play the 3 in the back, and we haven't seen Pineda change it as a starting lineup. We've seen him change it mid-game,
right?
But not out of the gates, which delivers your point exactly, which is not being strong. If you're doing it halfway or at halftime, it's to me that's a show of weakness right now, and I agree. So,
I mean, if you go back to the U.S., what we were talking about earlier, coming full circle in the conversation, right? We have all this young talent, the Pulisic's, the Gio Reynas, etc., who look, you know, like phenomenal, right? You know, and for once, we have a midfield that can keep that balance. We have Tyler Adams sitting at home who can absolutely just break up things unbelievably. And we have a guy in Weston McKennie who does the perfect balance between he's really dynamic going forward, and then when he needs to be, he's helping out Tyler Adams. Okay? If you take Atlanta United for MLS, we have a Tyler Adams, we have a Sosa. He's absolutely terrific. He breaks up plays like you wouldn't believe. We have an awesome Fab Four up front, the BAM, right? So you don't need that much. You just let him go, aggressive, you know, whatever. And all you need is to make sure you have a Weston McKennie role. You need another guy beside him. You can't do it on an island, right? You have to have that balance. And we have in the back, right, in Franco, Robinson, and I think Campbell, but maybe you say Walks, but there's 4 of them, all of who are capable defenders, right? We have decent outside backs, right? Going forward, they're terrific, Bello and Lennon. Defending, they're decent. Maybe you'd say Hernandez is better or whatever, but there is no reason why 4 of those guys can't defend.
You know, all of that, very true. I think one of the keys is going to be healthiness of the players in the next couple weeks.
Sure, everybody's healthy except you want.
Well, I don't know for sure since we never really know here in Atlanta United. But we know, back to Joseph's knee in the previous game, it sounds like he actually, and maybe because of the knee injury, strained a hamstring. I don't know if it's on the same leg of his knee or the opposite, which often happens when your body is compensating for an injury. You put more tension on another part of the body. So that's, I don't know, there's my medical, I stayed at Holiday Inn last night, and maybe that's why he's got a strained hammy. Sounds like it's not horrific, right? The hamstring, as far as like the 6-weeker or the 2-monther that Joseph has, sounds like maybe he's even going to play this game tomorrow, a little, or at least some minutes.
I kind of expecting him to play some minutes. I don't know whether he'll be in the starting lineup, but I think he's even contention to start. I think they just kept him out of the international, basically to get him some rest, and they just couldn't push it.
But they said it was a hamstring, which is never good, which is, always a little bit nerve-wracking when you watch a player who was, coming up with a hammy.
Yeah, but there's a torn or pulled hamstring, and there's a ever so slightly strained hamstring. And I think, for example, Weston McKennie apparently slightly strained his hamstring in the first game, and they stayed out. He looked absolutely fine in the third game.
I slightly strain my hamstring every morning.
Getting out of bed.
So I feel for them.
I'm concerned about Pineda.
All right, well let's give you the last couple minutes here to go into Pineda. Then this is you.
Well, it seems like this team picks itself, right? I mean, how can you possibly leave off any of Martinez, Araujo, Moreno, and Barco? And those four in and of themselves, given a free license and put in a somewhat spaced situation, are enough to break down any team in MLS. They've shown it time and time again. Barco's been terrific. Moreno's been terrific. Araujo's been terrific. And on top of it, all those guys can create. And now, when Martinez is finally back, he can finish. So you don't need that much. You need an occasional player out of the back, outside, overlapping, joining the attack, as a free guy to hit a beautiful cross. Maybe an occasional run out of one of the attacking midfielders, behind that. But basically behind that, you have 6 guys, and their job is to basically keep it where it's not easy to score against. And you figure if you keep it honest and you're winning most of the balls somewhere in the middle of the field and not getting all the way back to your own goal, those 4 guys are going to score, right? You just give them the time. That's all they need is time, right? And so why can't you figure out with those 6 players, a way to defend? And
so Dave, you're in Toronto tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
You're in the huddle.
Yeah.
You got 60 seconds to give directives to your 11 players.
Yeah.
Go.
Back 4 play straight up. We got 4 across the back in a standard play. The outside backs can get forward, to support when they get. You have Sosa. Your job is to sit and win the ball like you know how to do. I'm not.
Who's in front? Josetu in front of him?
Could be Josetu. I don't think you need that much. Josetu's been fine. There's other players who could play it. If you want to play on the road, you might say you play another defensive player like Mo Adams or something, but maybe Josetu at home when you're on the front foot more. But it doesn't really, really matter. You just need a second guy who's a midfielder.
All right. Sorry, you're still coaching up the team. Go.
And then, honestly, up front, right, you say, in my opinion, I would say I would put Araujo out on the left to really open it up. I would put Moreno out a bit, shading to the right, but, with a free license to roam in with Barco, right? And Martinez up top and say, go.
I like it. So we still haven't, now you mentioned that, we still have not seen Araujo put on that left side to stretch it out wide on the sidelines yet this entire time.
Yeah, he plays inverted all the time. We talked about originally, and my worry is that when he plays inverted, as good as he's been, And you've noticed this. They've been better when you haven't had the BAM all together, because when you have the BAM, they kind of get in each other's way. It's a little too narrow, right? So I think that all four of them should be playing, but you need something to open it up. Yeah. In my opinion, if you're going to play Araujo inverted, you're going to play Barco inverted like he likes, fine. Then you just need Bello or Lennon overlapping as an outside back, and it opens it all up. And if you have Bello or Lennon overlapping on the 2v1, that's a whole different story, right? But right now, they have them running up the field early, right, with abandon. We don't have anybody to win the ball in the center midfield with Sosa, because we have three in the back doing nothing, holding each other's hands, right? And so we don't have we're vulnerable on the outside in the back because those guys are flying up the field. They're not dynamic on the wing because they're up there too early and they're staying too far up. And we're getting killed in the center midfield because we only have one center midfielder. So give me a second center midfielder. Get those guys back so we're no longer dangerous, playing in behind us in the corners. And then have them with a license to get forward occasionally to fill in that role. And now it becomes dynamic on the wing and you're fine. You don't need a lot to open it up for Moreno, Araujo, and Bella and Barco. And all you need to do is give Sosa a partner. Every time he's done that, it's worked brilliantly.
All right, ATL on Fire listeners. Dave has gone on his Pineda rant. He's gone on what changes need to happen. Leave comments on this episode. Give us some ratings on Apple, Google Play, whatever you're listening to us on. Leave some nasty comments. But Dave, before they do all that, is there anything else you want to talk about before we close this podcast out?
8 games. We talked about it all in how many minutes?
We are at like about an hour and 25 minutes.
It's got to be a new record regardless of what it is. So we talk about it all. Thank you, Mikey Dobbs.
Thank you, Dave.
And thank you, podcast listeners.
No doubt. Sorry, we're gonna get back on our schedule. And
we've recalled Mikey Dobbs from the beach, so don't worry.
Yes. Thank you, everybody.